Hello again, friends. This is Mike, and welcome to another podcast. Today I'm going to talk about a continuation of what I started my last podcast, and that is an examination of some of the apparitions of the Blessed Mother, or Marian apparitions, if you will. And today we're going to talk about Our Lady of Guadalupe. Hello again, friends and fellow truth seekers. Mike Nicholas here with another episode of the Soul Unleashed podcast, where it's my goal to help you with the questions you might have regarding the awakening of your soul, and particularly to help other left brain types, like I think I am, ask the right questions in our search for deeper meaning to life. Ultimately, I want to help you unleash your soul from limiting beliefs and smothering paradigms. So let's get started. When I spoke during my last podcast, I talked about Marian apparitions in general, and my point in reviewing them or even discussing this topic has nothing to do with my background as a Catholic per se. I'm not doing this to espouse Catholicism, but I want to compare these visions, these apparitions, with things we see nowadays. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm ready to believe a lot of things about apparitions, especially since I've seen what I describe as orbs. And how does that relate to things like Marian apparitions, things that have been pretty well documented? So I'm going to talk about 5 of them. There's about 19 different apparitions, but I want to talk today about Our Lady of Guadalupe. That was in Mexico in 1531. And then Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal, which is in Paris, France. Our Lady of Lourdes, France again. Our Lady of Fatima, which was in Portugal in 1917. And then the latest one, which is still ongoing, which is called Our Lady of Medjugorje, which is taking place in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And what I want to examine really was the messages that this apparition, this spirit, this Blessed Mother, if you will, the spirit that appears as the Blessed Mother, what the messages are that she gives to the people that she appears to. So here's the format that I want to follow as I talk about these apparitions. One is I want to tell the story a little bit about what happened as part of the apparition, and then discuss the messages, and then look at a common theme among the messages as a whole. Now, Our Lady of Guadalupe, many of you know what that is, but it's kind of interesting. I see the symbol of Our Lady of Guadalupe all the time. I'll describe what this is, and I'll put a link to an image in the show notes. But it's a very popular image, especially among people from Mexico or from South America, Central America. They have a very strong devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe. In fact, a number of the homes around this area, when I drive around, a lot of people have the Blessed Mother in front of the house, but a lot of places have Our Lady of Guadalupe, that specific symbol that I recognize as Our Lady of Guadalupe. So here's what happened. It took place in Mexico City in 1531. And at that time, Mexico had been conquered by the Spanish who came over, and it was about 10 years after that had happened. And the Spanish conquistadors were spreading Catholicism. They were converting local people to Catholicism. So it's about a decade after that happened, 1531, and there's a person named Juan Diego Cuauhtlahuatzin, and I'm only going to say that one time. I'm going to call him Juan Diego from now on. But he was an indigenous convert to Christianity. He was from that area, and he was born in Cuautlatlan, which is near present-day Mexico City. And he belonged to a bunch of people called the Nahua people, and he grew up with all these vibrant traditions of his ancestors. So all the vibrant traditions of his ancestors were non-Christian. They had different gods and different beliefs, but he converted to Catholicism after the Spanish had arrived. He and his wife both converted, and he became a devout follower of Christianity. And he would regularly walk long distances to attend Mass and learn his catechism. And despite all this, he remained a very humble peasant. He lived a very simple life, and he continued to live a simple life after the death of his wife. So what happened was, it was the chilly Saturday morning on December 9th, 1531. Don't ask me how they know exactly when this was, but December 9th, 1531, Juan Diego was setting out for Mass. He walked his usual route, and he walked past a place called Tepeyac Hill. This particular spot was well known as a place where a temple had been built to their gods, the gods that were non-Christian, and it had a special meaning among his people. But as he walked past the hill, he heard a beautiful melody, which he described later as the song of many birds. And so he climbed the hill, and he found himself face to face with a radiant figure which was bathed in light. And he described her as a young woman, beautiful beyond description, dressed in a brilliant cloak with stars on the cloak, and a sash tied around her waist. She spoke to him in his native language, and she introduced herself as, quote, the ever-virgin Holy Mary, Mother of the true God. We'll talk about that in a little bit real quick. But she said, Juanito, my dear son, I am the mother of the true God who gives life and maintains existence. I desire that a temple be built here so that I may offer my love, compassion, and help to all who seek me. She then further instructed Juan Diego to go to the local bishop, Juan de Zumarraga, and deliver her request for a shrine to be built on Tepeyac Hill. He was trembling but filled with joy, and Juan Diego set off to fulfill her wish. So he walked several miles. He reached the residence of the bishop, and of course he was a humble peasant, right? The bishop listened to what he said, but the bishop remained skeptical. Juan Diego apparently seemed like a very unlikely messenger for a divine request, so the bishop dismissed him politely, asking for more evidence. Juan Diego was disheartened, but he returned to Tepeyac Hill later that same day, and they found that the lady was still waiting. She listened to his account of how he had failed to convince the bishop, and she reassured him, and she said, Am I not here, I who am your mother? Then she urged him to return to the bishop the next day. So the next day was December 10th, and they call this the third apparition. He had seen the Blessed Mother twice now. So on Sunday, he went back to the bishop's residence, and after much persistence, he had to talk his way into the bishop again, I guess. This time, the bishop asked him for a sign to confirm that the apparition was truly the Blessed Mother. So Juan Diego promised to return with some kind of sign, and he hurried back to Tepeyac Hill to report this to the lady. And she assured Juan Diego, I guess he saw her again, she assured him that she would provide a sign the next day. Well, the next day was supposed to be December 11th, but when Juan Diego went home, he discovered that his uncle, Juan Bernardino, was gravely ill. And that next morning, December 11th, instead of meeting the lady as promised, Juan Diego set out to find a priest for his dying uncle. And he was trying to avoid the lady on the hill. So this was the next day after December 11th. This was December 12th. He was trying to avoid the lady on the hill, but she met him someplace else. And I guess he thought he could dodge her. But she intercepted him and she said, Juanito, my dear son, where are you going? And he was embarrassed and he explained about his uncle. And apparently he described her as being very tender and compassionate. And she said, do not let your heart be troubled. Am I not here, I who am your mother? Are you not under my shadow and protection? Is there anything else that you need? And the lady assured him that his uncle had been healed and asked him to climb the hill to gather flowers as a sign for the bishop. So despite it being winter and the hill barren, Juan Diego went up the hill, and there he found an abundance of Castilian roses. Now, this is a flower that is native to Spain, not Mexico. But he carefully collected all these roses in his tilma or cloak. This is an important thing, his tilma. But he put them all inside his tilma or cloak, and he returned to the lady. And she said, my little son, this is the sign you will take to the bishop. Tell him that in this he will see my wish fulfilled. So he hurried back to the bishop's residence, and he was finally admitted. I guess he talked his way back in. He stood before the bishop, he opened up his tilma, and all the roses spilled out onto the floor. And, to the bishop's amazement, there was a miraculous image of the Virgin Mary on his cloak, on his tilma, on the inside of his cloak. So that's really the heart of the whole Our Lady of Guadalupe, and the image that you see all the time is the image that was on his cloak. So upon seeing the image, the bishop, fell to his knees. He agreed to build a shrine as the lady had requested. News of the miracle spread, and that image that was on his cloak became a symbol of hope and unity among the indigenous people there and even the Spanish settlers. So the chapel was completed within weeks. Juan Diego moved into a small hermitage nearby. He devoted his life to prayer and sharing the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and he passed away peacefully in 1548 at the age of 74. And just as a follow-up to this, that image remained intact on the tilma. And initially it was thought that the tilma was made of cactus fiber, and apparently those tilmas from those days made of cactus fiber they would deteriorate within a few years. None of them lasted more than 10, 15 years. But anyway, 500 years later, this tilma still hangs in the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City, and it's one of the world's most visited pilgrimage sites. So, that's the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and anybody who's Catholic and anybody who's Catholic from Central America or Central America knows about South America, knows about the tilma and the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe. But what does it mean? Can you believe in it? I will tell you that they've done a lot of investigations into the tilma and what it means and where it comes from. If you go on the internet and you look for critics, there's plenty of people that say it's not real, that it's a painting, it's been photographed in ultraviolet light and all this jazz. Apparently it was hidden during the Mexican Revolution, and when it was hidden, to protect it, they snipped off a piece of the edge of the cloak, and it was analyzed, and it's not made from cactus fibers, it's made from hemp. I don't know why that makes a difference so much, except that hemp cloaks can last a lot longer, up to maybe 70, 80 years. Still, it's been 500 years. And there are critics, of course, who said it was made of cotton or was made in Europe or something, and all that's been debunked. But anyway, this cloak is still a big deal. And so a couple things that I found interesting about it. I mentioned that the lady had stars on her cloak, and the stars that are on the tilma have been analyzed by, eggheads, I guess, that do this kind of stuff. But they figured out that the stars represent the way that the sky looked on that morning, December 9th, 1531. And I guess you can figure that stuff out, but that's apparently an amazing thing, if it's true, that the star pattern represents how things looked that specific day in 1531. So to conclude this, I just want to talk about the purpose of the meaning in her spiritual message. Honestly, the lady, the Virgin Mary, the Blessed Mother, this appearance, this spirit, did not really give very many messages, right? She only said a couple things. The first time she saw him, it was pretty quick, and she said, "I am the ever Virgin Holy Mary, Mother of the true God." And that's kind of important, and I'll explain that in a second, but she called herself the Mother of the true God, and then later she said, am I not here, I who am your mother, which is kind of a maternal thing. And tomorrow I will provide you with a sign for the bishop. And the last thing she said is, do not let your heart be troubled. Am I not here, I who am your mother. So she did heal his uncle. He went back later and found out, and she appeared to his uncle also. He saw her, apparently, and so that was another miracle that he was healed, and he didn't die. However, there's four things I just want to cover in terms of the broader spiritual themes and the messages. One is unity and inclusivity. The second thing is the divine feminine and kind of the maternal archetype of the whole message. The third is her message about resilience and perseverance and faith. And the fourth is healing and compassion. So unity and inclusivity, the first thing. When she says, I am the mother of the true God, one way to look at this is that she was trying to appeal to the indigenous people as well as the converts of Christianity. She didn't say, I am the mother of Jesus Christ. She didn't say, I am the mother of Christianity. She said, I am the mother of the true God. And even more than that, she said, I am the mother of the true God who gives life and maintains existence. So some people say that the purpose of that message was to talk about unity and to encourage unity. And she asked that the shrine to her be built on a place which was already sacred to the indigenous people there. And so the message of unity is that, she's a mother of the God, the one true God, and maybe it's the one that's worshipped by the people, the indigenous people, and maybe it's the one that's worshipped by Christians. Can that be the same God? That supposedly is the message. I think that's probably heresy to some Catholics, but she didn't say I'm the mother of Catholics or I'm the mother of Jesus Christ. She's the mother of the true God. So many would argue there that she promotes the convergence of diverse spiritual traditions and unity and inclusivity. The second thing is divine feminine and kind of the maternal archetype. So she says, I am the mother of the true God, but she talks about being a mother. And a number of times she says to him, am I not your mother? So it's very strong on maternal care, offering maternal care and protection, and maternal love. The third thing is a resilience and perseverance in faith. She told him to go back a couple times, right? He was just a humble peasant. He had to talk his way to the bishop 3 times. But guided by the Virgin Mary and encouraged by her, Juan Diego overcame those challenges. And, of course, she gave him this amazing symbol and roses to provide to the bishop. You know, that if true, is pretty cool. And the last thing is healing and compassion. And so she healed his uncle, Juan Bernardino, and, of course, he saw her. And so the image on the tilma can also represent divine healing and the potential for spiritual healing. And, you know, overall, some would argue that it invites people to embrace compassion and care for others as a path to spiritual growth. So that's kind of the conclusion about Our Lady of Guadalupe and the message she delivered over 500 years ago, inviting all seekers to seek comfort and strength and purpose in divine love. It's hugely popular, as I mentioned, among people from that part of the world, and certainly well known. The critics criticize just to be fair or balanced about this, the critics, mentioned that it was not a real a divine painting on the tilma. There's some other group of eggheads that have investigated it and filmed it, and there were 3 guys that looked at it, I think, in the 1970s, 1980s. One of them concluded it was a fake, but the other 2 guys think it's real. So there's no consensus about it. And that's just the first of the ones we'll look at. But that's the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe. That's her message, and they get a lot more interesting from here. So I invite you to join me as we go on to the next apparition. It's going to take place about the story of the miraculous medal from Paris, France. Thanks again. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.